So I had a big reset when I was in my late 20s where I went broke. Partnership broke up. I got divorced. I lost all of my money. I was very depressed. And so that was its own thing. And it took a long time to claw my way out of that. And I wouldn't call it a failure though, because I am where I am now. And all that happened, even with that reset, because I had been successful before. I'd owned property. I had made money. I had my nice car. I'd owned my home. And this is all in my early 20s. And I was like, and then to have everything taken, they're not taken, but you lose it all. And it's, yes, that sucked, but it would suck more if it happened today. If I hadn't learned all those lessons, then it happened when I have a family and I have a lot of stuff going on, a lot of people relying on me. I'm Mark Grasse, and I am undone.
Hey friend, I'm glad you're here. Welcome to another episode of Becoming Undone, the podcast for those who dare bravely, risk mightily, and grow relentlessly. I'm Toby Brooks, a speaker, an author, and a professor. Over the past 2 decades, I've worked as an athletic trainer and a strength coach, and over those years, I've grown more and more fascinated with what sets high achievers apart, and how failures that hurt in the moment can end up being exactly the push we need to send us down our own path to success. Each week, I invite new guests to examine how high achievers can transform from falling apart to falling into place. If this is your first episode, I really hope that you love it. Closing in on my first full year here. I've had the pleasure of interviewing some incredible guests. Check out some of the other episodes of high achievers who didn't let failure or setback stand in the way of their eventual victory. And if you're a regular, I am thankful for you. 2023's one word for me was discipline. But 2024 is gratitude. I'm forever appreciative to you for the kind words and the encouragement to keep going. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for joining me on this journey and for being an encouragement and inspiration along the way. I'd like to emphasize that this show is entirely separate from my role as a professor, but it's my attempt to apply what I've learned and what I'm learning and to share with others about the mindsets of high achievers. Mark Grasse is one of those people you meet who seem to operate on a higher voltage than most others. The guy just exudes energy and confidence in an uncommon way. An aspiring business owner for as long as he can remember, Mark moved from jobs and roles that would appear on paper to be completely unrelated as he grew as an entrepreneur and a communicator. However, today he reflects that it was a painful period of struggle and loss in his late 20s, a period he refers to as a reset, that ultimately led him to where he is today as President of DigitalMarketer, a skills and talent development firm that served over 100,000 students in 174 countries and counting. I hope you'll enjoy my conversation with Mark Grasse in episode 70, Reset. This week we have a name that's familiar to many in the digital marketing space. Mark Grasse, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Yeah. So as I was sharing off camera a little bit before the show, this show is focused not so much on the wins as the losses and what we can learn from those losses. And certainly you have carved a pretty mighty place in the digital marketing space and AI for sure. Set yourself apart as a front runner on using and leveraging that technology. But your background is certainly not exclusively in that. And for that matter, when I went to college, when you went to college a little bit after, AI wasn't even a thing. So it wasn't like you could even study it then, right? So I always start off with a little bit of a softball. What did you want to be growing up and why?
Oh man, that shifted all over the place. I think one of the earliest professions I wanted to be was a architect in second, third grade. And even back then I had a computer because my dad was a computer engineer, but yeah, my parents got me a protractor and a compass and a graph paper, and I was super happy. But yeah, that all changed. I really wanted to be a business owner since I was super young. I used to stay in at recess with my friend Jack, and we used to write these stories about our success when we grow up, and then we'd build our mansions using the architect stuff. But yeah, I had some big influences that kind of pushed me towards, having a business. That's what it's all about. And I've done both. Yeah, business owner. That would be it.
Yeah. I got sent to the principal's office almost every year for the same thing, selling candy on my bus that I would buy at Walmart and sell. So that entrepreneurial DNA shows itself early.
Just there.
We've definitely had a varied background, and it looks like from what I gather from your bio, started in the fitness industry and had some experiences in grant writing and even design work. What do you think those previous experiences that on paper aren't directly linked to what you're doing taught you that has served you well in your current pursuits?
Oh, there's so many. And it has been even before that, because the fitness industry I was in for about 10 years. But prior to that, I was actually in educational tech. So out of college, I joined a startup called Teleparent, and we put together systems to communicate messages from teachers to parents in their home language, which in the mid 2000s was actually super unique and cool. And then prior to that, and that's where the government grant writing and the RFPs and all that kind of stuff came about, which is really content is what I found, because I was doing a lot of data collection, organization, and layout design. And so I learned about that, learned about insane deadlines, learned about crazy specific specs that organizations, especially the government, will come up with. And you'll just be like, oh my gosh, how do I get that answer on page 68? Line 5, section D, and fit everything else. And if that goes there, how do I reorganize? So that's where that kind of stuff came about. But even prior to that, I was in real estate. And so in real estate, and this is in the early 2000s, I was still doing website design. I was learning about how to get marketing. That's what real estate's all about. So building a farm and then doing conventional networking and in-person kind of marketing. You're dropping flyers. Learned a lot. That specifically in real estate, I learned about speaking to people, because I realized when I was a teenager that I was super introverted. Don't seem like it now, but this is all learned. Talking to people, that's a learned skill. And so I realized that. So I went to the most uncomfortable profession that I could think of, which was real estate, and had to do cold calls, which was insane.
I love this insight. Mark thinks of himself as an introvert and someone to whom communication skills didn't come naturally. However, you'd never know it judging by his confidence and the way he speaks so freely and easily. That didn't just happen. He cultivated it. He grew it. He worked on it because he knew that it would be a critical part of his future plans. And while it's tempting to run away from discomfort, Mark did just the opposite. He intentionally sought out work in real estate, the industry that he thought would make him the most uncomfortable. Winston Churchill once said that fear is a reaction and courage is a decision. Mark felt the fear and made the conscious choice to run toward his discomfort, and the decision has served him well.
And then fitness, of course, taught me about organization, progression, the value of content, and how you could connect content to products, which I did by importing equipment from other countries and then selling it through an e-commerce store using, it wasn't GeoCities, I think it was Yahoo stores. I learned about paid traffic. I learned about content marketing, SEO, all elements of digital marketing with fitness. I made a magazine, sold that magazine. So I learned how to essentially create a company that you can sell 100% organic, because I did not use much paid media for that one. Then sold my company, and there's other stuff in between. But yeah, in fitness, I was actually a marketing executive for a commercial fitness brand too, that actually was totally different than consumer fitness, which I had a gym and certification and a magazine for. And then I went into Onnit, which was supplements. And so I learned about how to do supplements and how to do kind of bigger level e-commerce. Then I wrote a book about the process and made an agency where I worked with about 300 different companies to develop different brands, learned all about web development and project management with 300 different organizations, which was tough. And then DigitalMarketer, learned even more about higher level. And so I had never dealt with kind of those high ticket sales, and I got high ticket sales. And it's been a journey. But yeah, that's the gist. There's way more stuff in there that deals with failure and stuff too.
Sure. I grew up blue collar, and I can distinctly remember when I was young, my dad was a mechanic, and I remember him saying his boss, he worked in a coal mine, left for another job. And I said, Dad, are you going to apply for that job? He said, no, I don't want to be the boss. And that just, I didn't understand that in the moment. I'm like, why wouldn't you want to be in charge? And I think entrepreneurs are wired differently. And I think one thing that, when I hear a story like yours, is you didn't necessarily niche yourself into a specific market. You honed skills as an entrepreneur that you could then leverage to other successes. And so on paper, it might appear, grant writing doesn't have anything to do with artificial intelligence, but those skills, whether they're emotional intelligence, whether they're soft skills, whatever they are, certainly carry over. The focus of this show is really normalizing the fact that successful people fail. And I think a lot of times we can be our own worst enemies, and perfectionism can really deter us on our attempts to build something new, to be a serial entrepreneur. What would you say has been your biggest failure in business, and what did it teach you?
The original business, the one that I sold to Anna, that actually came after the actual business that we had started broke apart. And so originally it was a gym, it was training, just an actual service. Then it was the e-commerce, and then it was the magazine. And so we split that business up. And I'm pretty convinced to this day, if we had just pushed through and figured out the partnership and had just built the thing together or continued to, it would have been enormous. It could have been like Dick's Sporting Goods or something. Maybe that was a bit big, but you never know. We were the first ones in that space, and stuff happens. I had a lot of personal stuff. My partner had personal stuff, and then everything that he collapsed in my life. And so I had a big reset when I was in my late 20s where I went broke. Partnership broke up. I got divorced. I lost all of my money. I was very depressed. And so that was its own thing. And it took a long time to claw my way out of that. And I wouldn't call it a failure though, because I am where I am now, and all that happened, even with that reset, because I had been successful before. I had owned property. I had made money. I had my nice car. I'd owned my home, and this is all in my early 20s. And I was like, and then to have everything taken, they're not taken, but you lose it all. And it's, yes, that sucked, but it would suck more if it happened today. If I hadn't learned all those lessons, then it happened when I have a family and I have a lot of stuff going on, a lot of people relying on me. If it happened now, that would be much, much worse. And so in a way, I would say that's a pretty big failure, but at the end, it's rather than now.
Yeah. And sometimes that setback teaches us things about ourselves, like resilience and grit, and just recognizing that if I've done it before, I can do it again. You touched on something that I think is really important, and it's something that has frequently come up on this show, and that's depression and the mental health side of high achievers, whether it's perfectionism and feeling like we never measure up, or whether it is in the midst of things not going according to plan. And there's certainly a stigma associated with being vulnerable, being open. What role would you say your mental health has played in your success today? And what are some strategies or tips or just some things you've learned along the way in consideration of your mental health that's helped you be successful?
Oh my gosh, it's 100% today. Because before, and this is what led to my original big reset failure, was that I thought I knew how to plan everything. Here's my life. Here's how it's going to go. I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this, finish school, get married, blah, blah, blah. You do all the things. And then when that all collapsed and it all fell apart, then I realized like, oh crap, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. This isn't how I thought it was going to go. And so I had to really revise and really humble myself to understand that, one, I don't have control over everything. And at the end of the day, as you mature even more, you realize you have control over nothing. Like the only thing you actually have control of is how you perceive your current situation. That's the only thing that matters, because a person could have great success and zillions of dollars and still be depressed and still be miserable. And so when I finally realized that, and this actually took longer than just that original failure, it actually took me gaining my position as President of DigitalMarketer. When I finally achieved that, and that was after I sold a business, I built another business, I had money, I had done work for a ton of different companies. And then I got the house that I always wanted, and my family had money, and I had the car I wanted to drive, and I had all these things. And then I sat there and I was like, I'm still not happy. Oh my God. And then I looked around and it was this shocking moment when I was like, oh my gosh, I can't remember being happy ever. And what had pushed me through was just, even during the failure and the struggle, was still like, I'm working. There's a goal. I'm going to get the goal. I'm working. And just this discipline I had, it enabled me to just push through this feeling that nothing I did really mattered very much. And I had no happiness, and I was miserable. And it was always just the work helped me get through. And when I finally realized, like, oh my gosh, like my happiness and my mental health has nothing to do with my success, nothing to do with my achievements, nothing to do with my goals. Like, it had nothing to do with it. I had completely missed. I had accomplished nothing essentially. And so when I realized that, I was like, okay, my mental health is off. So I am doing something wrong. You're not supposed to feel like I feel right now, especially after everything I've done. And so at that point, and this is probably like 3.5 years ago, I was like, I have to change, and I obviously can't figure it out. And so I need to do stuff. And so then I signed up for a marathon and I started going to therapy, and then I started doing cold dips, and I started doing daily meditation, and I started reading the Bible, and I started doing supplementation, and I did gut biome check, and I gave up alcohol, and I gave up beef and pork and eggs and broccoli, and I completely changed my entire diet. And then I started doing sun gazing, and then and so it took me a while. It took me probably 2 years solid of doing like proactive mental health work. And then I finally had a breakthrough. And this is after I had completely changed my diet and done all these things. And then I had what they call a Kundalini awakening. Kundalini is a type of yoga. And then everything broke. And I was free. I had realized that I had essentially built up this shell of myself that I thought people wanted to see. And while I presented this shell to everyone, it prevented me from connecting to anyone because I never shared anything I really thought. And I never showed actually who I am. And so once that broke, so that was gone again. And if you go through this, it's an hour of crying is what you do. And it's not out of remorse. It's out of gratitude was mine, where I realized like, oh my gosh, I've accomplished so much and I was so miserable and I could have ruined everything. And I didn't. And I still have everything that I have. And that's just incredible.
That is a lot. The list of things Mark rattles off here as part of his self-care journey is impressive. It's also aligned with the model that I've tried to follow from Luke 2:52 in the Bible, where it says Jesus grew in wisdom, stature, favor with God and man. There are mental, physical, spiritual, and social aspects to Mark's journey. And while it would be tempting to zero in on even just one of them, he's leveraged them collectively to put himself into the best mental and physical condition of his life. It's not easy to commit to carry such a varied load, but he's done it well, with an eye always toward new opportunities to improve.
Then I had this big breakthrough, and then I started realizing like, oh my gosh, I could just tell people everything. I could just share everything. And when I do that, everybody else shares things too. And then I was able to connect with people like I had never connected to people ever in my entire life. And this was when I was 39. And then everything else happened. And it's progressing from there. But I'm a different person than I was than when I started. And it all has mental health.
Yeah.
So, thankful for it.
That's incredible. I think certainly it's a process. And for myself, I don't give myself grace to go through growth doesn't happen overnight. And sometimes we can be our own worst enemies in allowing ourselves the time it takes to grow. So kudos to you for going through that process and continuing, I'm sure.
Thank you. And I will let you know that it was actually from fitness that allowed me to do that, because what it was, progression and understanding that just like in fitness, you don't get buff by spending 30 minutes in the gym once a year. It's
right.
It's daily, and you keep on hitting it, and you keep on going, and you measure and you optimize and progress. So
you alluded to digital marketer. That's what you spend your time on today. And you've certainly emerged in this AI space as a leader. So talk to us a little bit about what digital marketer entails and how you're leveraging artificial intelligence in what it is you do.
Sure. Digital marketer, we teach all aspects of digital marketing, which is all marketing at this point, but it's a systematic framework. We call it the customer value journey. It's an 8-stage process allowing people to know nothing about your brand, find your brand, engage, subscribe to your content, convert with a low priced offer, get excited after that purchase, ascend through your funnel, become a passive advocate, and finally an active promoter. And so it's an 8-stage system, and everything we do is derived from this process and involves all the methodology, which is what people think of when they think of digital marketing. Oh, it's email and it's SEO and it's social media and paid media and it's blah, 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 blah. Those are just techniques. And so you need to have a core strategy to apply these techniques to. Otherwise, you have one-off success, or random acts of marketing is what we call it. So we teach people how to do that. And then we also set up communities and networks through our mastermind and through our certified partner program to help marketers engage each other and each other's knowledge in order to have us all succeed and share information so everybody could have more successful marketing. That's what digital marketing does. Now, AI is the realization of all of my dreams, because people don't realize that most of the time we spend doing stuff. And I've been using computers since I was probably 5. So this is like the mid 80s. My dad was a computer engineer, so I was always around computers. Is dumb. Like most of our time is dumb. It's spent doing data entry and replying to messages and rewriting content and organizing content and setting a schedule and blah, 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 blah. most of the time, on average, your average office worker in the United States spends 6 hours a day on email. And that doesn't say, oh, we're communicating so much. It's no, we're wasting a bunch of time, and processes just are stupid. And all of the things we do are basically just not getting work done. And I realized that because you could see a single marketer, and a single marketer could do so much. They could, if you set me loose and you said, hey, Mark, I just need stuff, and do whatever you want with the stuff, and here's the product, and just go crazy. I could build you amazing things, amazingly fast. But it's just because I don't have to deal with the back and forth of a bazillion people around me and other people's demands and thoughts about how you think the visuals should look and what the colors are and what the copy says and blah, blah, blah. None of that crap matters, because the actual system itself gets so convoluted and lost during this creation process because you have so many inputs that everything you do is not very effective. Now, what AI does is allows a single marketer to be uber powerful. You could do incredible things incredibly fast if you just have a basis of the information, a solid strategy, and then one person making decisions. You could build anything you want, and you could do it super fast. And so I exemplified this, and this is what I'm talking about at Traffic and Conversion Summit next month, which is a brand avatar, which is basically how to turn your brand into something that you could communicate to other people, but more importantly, communicate to AI so that you could create all the content you need and all the visuals you need and all the strategy you need all within a single system. And it's the brand avatar plus I'm presenting a magazine that I designed over a weekend. And I'm going to say, here's what you can do. Here's what we can do. And so that's all AI, because if it wasn't for AI, I did this process manually. I actually made my first magazine using Photoshop, which if you're a designer is hard.
For sure. Yeah. I teach by day, and everyone's crying about, generative AI is going to be the end of higher education, but it's a tool.
No.
And you can so leverage this tool to multiply and scale your productivity. And so I'm looking for ways to integrate it into what I'm doing, not to legislate it out. So
man, for education, AI and education, and that's really what Digital Marketer does, is we teach people. What that allows you to do is stop trying to communicate the information to a group of individuals, because that's what you do as a teacher, right? You have a lessons plan. You got to teach these things. The takeaways are going to be this. And then you have to say, how do I present this to a group of 30 people so they all understand? What AI is going to allow us to do is become formula builders. Here's the lesson I want to teach. And now I need to teach it to Billy. And you know what? Billy's obsessed with baseball. If I could take this lesson of this complex topic and turn it into baseball terms, now it's going to be interesting to Billy. It's going to be memorable because he likes baseball. And it's going to be understandable because we can apply all the rules for this lesson plan into baseball rules, which he already knows. And so it's contextual. And now you can make individual lesson plans for every one of those 30 people that will be communicated better than you could possibly even teach. Yeah. And so that's what AI is going to do for education.
Sure. I heard you mention on a recent podcast about how marketing messages are being crafted consumer by consumer in a way that you as a marketer 10 years ago, you have to market to. Maybe you niche it down into your group, but now you can do it. Google has this mountain of data on all of us. Yeah. I want to be respectful of your time. My next to last question here is a bit of an oddball. If you were watching a montage of your life, what song would you choose to play in the background and why?
Oh, what's funny is I'm not going to say why, but I'm at a point where I'm back to the same song that I've listened to multiple times in my life. Ramble On by Led Zeppelin. That's it. That's the song.
Very cool. Mark, you've obviously accomplished a myriad of different things in what would appear to be disparate industries, but all related. What for Mark is left undone?
You know what? I really want to help a bunch of individuals just get to like epic levels of success. And when I say success, it's not, oh, they have all this money. The older I've gone, the more I'm like, man, money's stupid. It's a tool. But that's like saying toothpaste is, oh man, you got to get the toothpaste because your teeth will be super clean. No, it's just, it's a tool. If I could help people understand that the journey part of it is the goal, like what you're doing, you're already doing it. Like the journey is the goal. And if I could convince people of that, then I think I could help people break out of the cycle, which is there's this awesome castle on the hill. And if you could reach the castle, you'll be happy and your whole life would be great. And if I could help people realize that castle is just another thing, and who cares? It doesn't matter. you're going to have to live there for the rest of your life. No, it's not going to be enough. You're going to get bored. And if you're not bored, then you're probably not deep enough to even be concerned with what I'm talking about. That's fine.
Mark, it's been a real pleasure. Thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Toby. I'm Mark Grasse, and I am undone.
For Mark, it's been a consistent climb toward success with an unplanned but unmistakably meaningful and impactful season where his definition of success was reframed and the skills needed to navigate adversity were built. I'm thankful to Mark for dropping in, and I hope you found inspiration and ideas for your own growth from our chat. For more info on today's episode, be sure to check it out on the web. Simply go to undonepodcast.com/EP70 to see the notes, links, and images related to today's guest, Mark Grasse. I know there are great stories out there to be told, and I'm always on the lookout. So if you or someone you know has a story that we can all be inspired by, tell me about it. Surf over to undonepodcast.com, click the contact tab in the top menu, and drop me a note. Coming up, I'll have the second half of my peek into the depths of the 1984 classic movie, The Never-Ending Story. I've also got some incredible new interviews that I'm working on, but I'm not quite ready to reveal those just yet. So stay tuned. This and more coming up on Becoming Undone. Becoming Undone is a Nitro Hype creative production written and produced by me, Toby Brooks. If you or someone you know has a story of resilience and victory to share for Becoming Undone, contact me at undonepodcast.com. Follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Becoming Undone Pod, and follow me at Toby J. Brooks on X, Instagram, and TikTok. You can also check out my link tree at linktr.ee/Toby J. Brooks. Listen, subscribe, and leave me a review at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. Till next time, everybody, keep getting better.